Um, we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 9, verses 46 and 47. But 46 doesn't have a purport, so I'm just going to read it and then we'll do 47 together. Is it your first? It's not your first class, or? Huh? Ah, okay. Okay, so I'll do it step by step. So we'll do it step by step. Okay. Shri Shuka Vacha Attaivam Idito Rajan Sadaram Trita Shair Hari Svam Upasanam Akarnya Prahatan Abhinanditaha. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, O King Parikshit, when the demigods offered the Lord their sincere prayers in this way, the Lord listened by his causeless mercy. Being pleased, he then replied to the demigods. Okay, so text 47. Shri Bhagavan. Okay, so how it works is I chant a line, and usually it's on the board so that you can read it as well. But then everybody chants that line, and then I chant again, and you chant the next line, and so forth and so forth. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Pritoham Vasura Shrista. Mad Upasana Vidyaya. Atmaisvarya Smrita Pungsang. Bhaktis Chaiva Yayamai. 47? On chapter 9. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Pritoham Vasura Shrista. Mad Upasana Vidyaya. Atmaisvarya Smriti Pungsang. Bhaktis Chaiva Yayamai. Prituham Vasura Shrista. Mad Upasana Vidyaya. Atmaisvarya Smriti Pungsang. Bhaktis Chaiva Yayamai. Anyone? Pritoham Vasura Shrista. Bhagavatasana Vidyaya. Maisvarya Smriti Pungsang. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Toham Vasura Shrista. Patupasana Vidyaya. Vaisvarya Smriti Pungsang. Bhaktis Chaiva Yayamai. Okay, so now we're going to do the word for word. So below you'll see the Sanskrit words and then the English translations. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said. Pritaha. Pleased. Aham. I. Vaha. Of you. Sura Shrestaha. O best of the demigods. Mat Upasana Vidyaya Upasthana Vidyaya, by the highly advanced knowledge and prayers offered unto me. Atma Aishvarya Smriti, remembrance of the exalted transcendental position of me, remembrance of the exalted transcendental position of me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pungsang, of men, Bhakti, devotional service, Cha, and Eva, certainly, Yaya, by which, Mai, unto me. Okay, so translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O beloved demigods, you have offered your prayers to me with great knowledge, and I am certainly most pleased with you. A person is liberated by such knowledge, and thus he remembers my exalted position, which is above the conditions of material life. Such a devotee is fully purified by offering prayers in full knowledge. This is the source of devotional service to me. Purport. Another name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Uttamashlok, which means that he is offered prayers with selected verses. Bhakti means Shravana Kirtanam, Vishnu, chanting and hearing about Lord Vishnu. Impersonalists cannot be purified, for they do not offer personal prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though they sometimes offer prayers, the prayers are not directed towards the Supreme Person. Impersonalists sometimes show their incomplete knowledge by addressing the Lord as being nameless. They always offer prayers indirectly, saying, "You are this, you are that," but they do not know to whom they are praying. A devotee, however, always offers personal prayers. A devotee says, Govindam Adipurusham, Taham Aham Bhajami. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Govinda, unto Krishna. That is the way to offer prayers. If one continues to offer such personal prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is eligible to become a pure devotee and return home back to Godhead. Okay, so usually what we do is the speaker usually chants some prayers so that whatever they say is not complete nonsense. So that's what I'm going to do now. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Darati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Om Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shundavari Pasachari Shtarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, one more time the verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O beloved demigods, you have offered your prayers to me with great knowledge, and I am certainly most pleased with you. A person is liberated by such knowledge, and thus he remembers my exalted position, which is above the conditions of material life. Such a devotee is fully purified by offering prayers in full knowledge. This is the source of devotional service to me. Okay, so forgive me, I'm a teacher, so I always try and figure out the level of all of my students. So are you familiar with any of like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam? So this is all completely new to you. Okay, so you are kind of coming in the middle of a great story. The Bhagavatam is like, it's like 18,000 roundabout verses. It's a dialogue between a spiritual master and his disciple. His disciple was kind of condemned to death and he had only 7 days to live. And that disciple, Maharaj Parikshit, his name is Maharaj Parikshit, King Parikshit, and he decided to spend that 7 days hearing as much spiritual knowledge as he can. So this spiritual master, Shukadev Goswami, he is telling him all sorts of stories from about Krishna, about God. So in this particular chapter, the demigods, so you have Krishna. So in Krishna consciousness, we believe in a personal God, and Krishna is the person, and the demigods are sort of like the ministers that oversee all the aspects of life. So you have a minister for rain and for the heavens, and you have a minister for fire and water and things like that. Okay, so and then you have the demons, and somehow the demigods made a big mistake. They offended, or they insulted their spiritual master, so he got angry at them and they sort of were in trouble. And it's a long story, but at the moment they are praying because there's this demon coming after them, like he wants to kill them. And they just prayed long prayers to Krishna, to Vishnu, like Krishna is the person at home and Vishnu is like the person at the office. Yeah, so they prayed to him for help, and so now we get to the point where the Supreme Person, Krishna, is actually answering them. Okay, so in yesterday's lecture we heard Aniruddha Prabhu talk about how we should have a clean heart. We all know that if we are somehow mentally disturbed or unhappy or depressed or emotional or angry, then those negative emotions take up all the space. We cannot think about something good. And so our hearts become dirty. And he said that we should at least just have one room in our heart that's clean. And then if you have an understanding of, okay, there must be someone bigger than me out there controlling everything, and he is a person, then you can come to that person when you have trouble. And that's what happens here. The demigods think, demon, big demon, his name is Vritrasura, and he's coming after us and he's going to kill us, or at least they thought so. They knock at Krishna's door in that room and they're like, please help. They really sincerely pray. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you are extremely scared or you are in such big trouble and then when you ask for help, you're like desperate. You're like, I'll do anything, just help me. I've been in a situation like that, and I just prayed and said, okay, just please get me out of this situation, and I promise I will never do it again. I think we all have some sort of idea how that goes. So before I get to the verse further, because today in our calendar we have a lot of festival days and we have a lot of birthday celebrations of saintly people, of important people, and it's a day where we celebrate three things. And now I'm just thinking of how to do it, which way to do it around. Okay, so let's start with the verse, seeing as how we already are in there, and then I'll come back to these personalities, because what happens today, these festival days or these special day, they tie in quite well with what happens in the verse. So we see that in the verse, the personality of Godhead, Krishna, he says that I'm very pleased with your prayers because you've done it in great knowledge. So it's not like they prayed something, they didn't concoct something, they pray to him. And the way they pray to him is that they first glorified him. They made sure that he knows, that they know that he's the greatest personality. So they praised him. They said how great he is, how dependent we are on him. And he says that he's pleased. And then he says that by offering prayers, we can become purified. So this is very important. In any kind of spiritual tradition, whether it be Krishna, like this Vaishnava tradition, or Christianity, or Islam, or Judaism, prayer is extremely important, because that's how you talk to God. And prayer is like the communication, and we know that any kind of or any kind of relationship that we have, if you stop talking to the other person, then there's no relationship anymore. So it's like a marriage. If I want to wreck my marriage, then I just stop talking to my husband. Then you grow apart, and then you somehow think, it's better to just separate, because there's nothing to build on. So that's what prayer is. Prayer is our communication to God. And also, Krishna also talks back to us in many different ways. So he says, number one, prayer is very important. And he says that, I mean, we've heard about impersonalists. So impersonalists are people that don't believe that there is a personal God. They just think it's like this bright light and everything becomes one, and we ourselves can become God. But they don't believe in the person. They just so I found it very interesting, or it struck a chord in me, because I didn't really think about it in that way, that impersonalists cannot become purified. Okay, so if they pray, it doesn't quite reach. So if we think it's like writing a letter to your health insurance, or to any kind of official office. No? I take the health insurance, because, or your insurance company, any kind of insurance company. You can write to them like, dear sir or madam, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, or you can write it and it reaches. But if you have a person to write, right? Because if you have some query, there's always a person that is responsible for you. And then if you write it like, dear Mr. So and so, then it's more personal. And I don't know if I'm sure that you know the frustration. If you need to phone, then either you don't get through, or sometimes you on the internet and there's this little chat function that you can ask your questions about, and you get a bot, like this automated little thingy. Hi, I'm Aliyah or whatever, I'll help you. And I'm like, it's not personal. And sometimes you just get stuck, because it's not a person. It can't think for itself. So it's not a perfect analogy, but it's how I understand the prayers of the impersonalists. You cannot get the full mercy of a person, or the full measure of the relationship, if you are not directly involved with that person. If yeah, yeah, I mean, they do pray for things, but it's not, and they may get it because there are very strict rules according to how the universe works, but it's just not the same, and they can't, and the relationship won't become deeper, so they won't become purified. So we learn in this verse how important prayer is. Krishna says that right from the beginning, that I am pleased with you because your prayers are full of knowledge. And he says that thus he remembers my exalted position, which is above the conditions of material life. Such a devotee is fully purified by offering prayers and full knowledge. This is the source of devotional service. So Krishna says, if you want to start devotional service, obviously we have this Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra over there. And this is the beginning point. So this is how we start talking to Krishna. And so Krishna makes this distinction between the impersonalists and the devotees. So it's quite interesting that the demigods, even though Krishna was very pleased with them, they themselves are not quite pure. They're not pure devotees. So, and why do I say that? Because they are personalists. They know that if they are in trouble, they know where to go. They know to ask Krishna for help. But they had the attitude of, oh, we really want to win this war between the demigods and the demons, but we want to win it. But Krishna, we want to win it for you. But actually, it's something that they wanted. It's not. So they weren't fully pure in that sense. I kind of think of it in this way, that sometimes you have a relationship with someone, and I usually use the example of a marriage because I'm married, so all my experience comes from that. So if you're married, you have a husband and a wife, and you could be married in two different ways. You could be married in the sense of, I really love this person and I want to do the best for them, and I want to make their life easy, and whatever I do contributes to that. And it doesn't really matter what I want, or it's not as important. Or you could be married in the sense that I really want someone to take care of me. I really want someone to be there for me, to someone that I can trust, someone that I can talk to. So it's something that you want, and it might work if the two people are equal in their give and take. It might work, but anybody who has been in any kind of friendship, any kind of romantic relationship, knows that it's not such a nice feeling to know that people only approach you when they want something from you. It is the thing that makes me angry in 2 seconds. I know that I have friends that never ever talk to me except when they want something from me. And that doesn't work. This is not quite how the demigods are. I mean, they have dedicated their lives to Krishna, and they are doing their best. They're running the whole universe, basically. They're giving us sunshine, they're giving us rain, water, everything. So they are doing a lot of work for Krishna, but they are somehow attached to their position. I mean, if you are king, we see a lot of political leaders that are really attached to being president, and they just stick to that position for 100 years. I come from South Africa, so we have this example of Robert Mugabe. He was the president of Zimbabwe, and he was basically a dictator. He wasn't allowed to run for president more than 8 years, but he just stuck to it like glue. And basically, he died in that position. No? So that's what I mean, is you have this attachment. And the demigods, so basically what I didn't say was that Indra got into trouble because he was, so Indra is like the king of heaven, he's like the president of the demigods, and he was attached to his position. That's how this whole that's how this whole story started, because he was so attached to being, I'm the king and everybody brings me glory, so I don't pay respects to my master, to my spiritual master. That's how this started. So we have two different, so we have grades of people. We have the impersonalists on the one hand that have absolutely no idea of God, or the atheists, the impersonalists who think there is something bigger but it's not a person. And then we have the people who say there's definitely a person and I can get a lot of things from him. So sometimes we see that our prayers are also like shopping lists. I want this, I want this, I want this. Once my husband got really disturbed when I prayed for a parking spot, because I hate parking. I'm not a good driver. I mean, I'm a good driver, but I don't like parking. And so I always think, oh, I have to drive somewhere and I don't want to parallel park, so I just pray for a parking space. That's easy. And he's like, you got to ask Krishna for that. And so I confess that I'm definitely not pure. I have a very long shopping list, but at least I know where to go with that shopping list. I don't go anyone else but to Krishna. So that's at least one step higher. And then you have a pure devotee that says, Krishna, I don't want anything from you but to be with you. So if you've ever been in love in your life, you'll know that if you're really infatuated with someone, you're really in love with someone, then everything is about that person. You'll you'll break your back helping that person. I remember once, years ago, my minister, before I kind of switched lanes, a minister told us when she was at college, at university, at the end of the year, we usually have these big fancy dances, like Abi. Like at the end of your school day, it's end of your school career, there's this big fancy dinner and people get dressed up in suits and Abibal, yeah. So it was like that, but at university. And during her career at university, being a student, she went to many, and it was very opulent and very nice. But the year that she went to this ball at the end of the year with her future husband, so she was very much in love with him, and they went to this ball, and somehow it didn't work out really well. She didn't have a nice dress, the food was burnt, the place was small, the material situation was just not as it used to be, but she did not care. It was not just because she was with that person. So everything else was substandard, but because she was with that person, she had the best dance ever. And that's how we are. So the pure devotees, the people with no other motives, they are the ones that says, Krishna, I just want to be with you. Just that. And I want to do things for you, and I want to love you. Punkt. And so that's where we are aiming at. And if we go back to today, so we have two very good examples of today. So in our tradition, we don't only celebrate the birthdays, but we also celebrate what we call disappearance days of great devotees. So great people, when they die, it's also, again, a South African example, it's like Nelson Mandela, our president. When he died, it was a big thing. People were very sad. But on that day, they kind of looked back on his life, and they kind of got swept up in how much he did for the country, what a good person he was. So that's why we celebrate disappearance days as well, because we look back on the life of that person, and we think we're grateful for what that person brought to us, to what that person brought to us. So today is the disappearance day of two people, Mukunda Datta and Kolavecha Sridhar Prabhu. What's his title? Sridhar.
In the calendar was Sridhar Pandit.
Sridhar Pandit. But yeah, it's Kolavecha Sridhar. So, we know that Mukunda Datta was a friend of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you look on the altar on the left-hand side, you have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. So he was the form of Krishna. So Krishna decides in what form he wants to come in different times. So it's like a teacher. You can have a high school teacher, a middle school teacher, and a primary school teacher, and they will explain. So you can explain 1 + 1 to a 6-year-old, and they might get it, but by the time that you are 18 years old, 1 + 1 is already easy, and you get more and more information. So according to what time you are in this universe, Krishna decides to come and help us. But according to where we are and with the people that he speaks to, he takes a different form. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a form that he took 500, it's not exactly 500 years, but around about 500 years ago. And he's the closest, and Mukunda Datta was a friend of his. And Mukunda Datta, just imagine if God comes to earth and you could be a friend of his. That's not a small thing. But what he did is he hung out with the devotees, he hung out with Krishna Chaitanya, but then in his free time he also went to the impersonalists, to the Mayavadis, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found out, he got very angry and he kind of banned Mukunda Datta from his association. It's like if you cheat on your husband, you hang out with your husband, but in your free time you go and hang out with other men. Doesn't quite work. You split loyalties. But so we learn few things. We learn how dangerous it is to hang out with the wrong people, because they can get you into trouble. And we've just learned from this verse that impersonalists cannot be pure. So imagine if he had in any way had taken up that philosophy, then his chances of becoming pure would have been scrapped. He would have just not been able to do it. But we also learn how merciful Chaitanya is, because he said, I will never ever speak to him again. But the moment he heard that Mukunda Datta gave up, he said he promised, I will never go there again. Then he was happy. Then he said, okay, you can come back. So we learn that we should be very careful with whom we hang out, but we also see that if we mess up, Krishna is very merciful. He gives us a lot of chances. That's why there's this process of reincarnation, because I'm not a parent, but I know that even in our friendships, even in our relationships, people might mess up, but it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the friendship. It just means that, okay, you get another chance. You messed up, it's a bit not nice, but you can get a second chance. And then the disappearance day of Kolavecha Sridhar, he was a pure devotee. So now we have Mukunda Datta, he messed up a little bit, but now we have Kolavecha Sridhar. He was a very poor poor man, very dirt poor. He was in India. Usually, they don't eat out of glass plates. They eat out of on leaf plates. So what he did is he sold banana leaves. So banana leaves are quite big, and he sold those to people. And you can imagine he didn't become a rich man. So he was very poor, but still he gave 50% of whatever he earned in a day. He used that 50% to buy Krishna flowers to offer to him. And I mean, he didn't have proper clothes to wear. He was hungry most of the time, but he just loved Krishna so much that it didn't matter to him. And what happened is that Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he kind of disguised himself. He took the form of a small boy, and he kind of went to him, and they had this whole discussion about, oh, give me the banana plates for so and so. It's like, bargaining. I'll give you so many banana plates, but I'll give you that much. And he kind of took him for a ride. He basically stole his banana plates. And but still, Sridhar, because it was Krishna, and whenever you have to have something to do with Krishna, whatever happens, it's really wonderful. And I had a picture in my mind that sometimes we allow small children things that we would never ever allow grown-ups. Okay, so small children can get away with things that grown-ups will get in trouble for. So if a small child steals something from you, you think, oh, sweet, it's okay. But if a grown-up steals something from you, you want to throw him in jail. So that's why this small boy, he's very cute and very lovable. And so it was a very pleasant experience somehow. And then in the end, Mahaprabhu was so pleased with Sridhar's devotion that he said, okay, I can give you anything. So imagine you're dirt poor, and then you get this person who says, I can give you anything you want. And he's like, no, I don't want anything. I don't want anything except I want to see that form, that cute boy, that little boy. I want to see that form. That's all I want. So that's what I meant is, if you love God so much that you just want to be with him. And I mean, who doesn't love, all animals, even small snakes, are cute in some way. And we like them. It's like this cuteness factor makes us attached to that little kitten or puppy or whatever. And the same for children. Small children are cute. And it's this form that Sridhar was attached to. And so he didn't want anything. That's why. So to come back to the verse, we see that the demigods were a bit different. They still saw the world into. They still sorted the world into, okay, good times, and now we have a problem. So the more problems you see in the world, it means that you are somehow still attached to something. That's why it becomes a problem. But if you just love Krishna, then no matter what, you can be dirt poor, you can have no money, you can have burnt food, you can have no home, whatever. Doesn't matter. I still have Krishna. I'm okay. Right? So that's a very high level, and I'm not there, so I cannot explain to you the mechanics. Just the more you get to know a person, the better you love them, the deeper you love them, and the more trust you have in them. So it is also about trust. So, and then the third day is next Saturday. We have a big festival. So it's a Rath Yatra. It's like an ancient chariot festival. There's a big wagon, and we pull it. And so we basically give Krishna a ride. It's like in winter when the children have sleighs. You have children that sit on the sleigh and the other children pull, and it's great fun. So it's almost like that, but with Krishna. And so we have this festival. It's basically a festival that we say to Krishna, okay, I want you. So we pull. So in the beginning, I said that we should have at least one clean room in which Krishna can stay in our heart. So it's like this festival pulls Krishna into our heart. We try and pull him there and say, okay, here. So today is where it's called Snan Yatra. So we give. We don't have them here, but there are other forms of Krishna, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. So if you are still here on Saturday, you will come and you'll see. But today they get a bath, so it's like a preparation for this event. So to summarize, we've heard from this verse that even though the demigods, their prayers weren't completely pure, they still had this attachment to winning the war, but they wanted to win it for Krishna, and they did it in the right way, and Krishna was pleased. So, and we learned from this verse how important it is to communicate with Krishna, to pray to him, and to become pure. So the more we talk to people, the better we get to know them, and the deeper the relationship goes. That's what prayer is for, to purify the relationship, to realize that I'm not the number one person in this relationship. So a marriage or a friendship works best when each person thinks that the other person is number one. Okay, so that person is number one and I serve, or I give him, and the other person thinks, no, I'm not the most important, because we as selfish human beings, we tend to take, take what we need and leave the rest. So, but if we start giving, then it's best. So that's what we aim for, to get to this stage where we don't want anything anymore for ourselves. But it's a process, so, and that we learn. So you have the impersonalists who cannot pray at all, who can't become pure. You have the demigods who definitely believe in Krishna and they do it the right way. And then, as we learned, we have people like Sridhar that are completely pure. They just pray to Krishna, I don't want stuff, just give me you, I just want you. Let me love you. So, and so the bottom line is this line of communication, this mood of prayer. Whenever we need something, even though it is at the beginning where we just have our shopping lists, fine, have your shopping list. Your shopping list will become shorter, but at least know where to go shopping. So at least know who to ask for it. But it's a process. And then later on in the chapter, we will learn more about what Krishna says. But in this verse, it was about how pleased he was with the prayers, even though they weren't completely pure, and that prayer itself is a purifying process. Okay, any questions? Any comments, criticisms, anything? Yeah.
I have a small joke.
Okay.
Connected to asking the Lord for help. In the same circumstance, a man who was driving and who was praying to God, please give me a parking place. And then he come to a place and he find a parking place and he say, oh God, don't bother, I found one.
Oh, yeah. So that can also happen. It's like Krishna gives you stuff, and then, yeah, you think, oh, I got it, and for myself, yeah. That's one way to look at it. Anything else? You have any questions? So, a lot to process. Okay, so let's just give you some time to process. Okay. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, breakfast time, I think.